After El Paso and Dayton, make no mistake, they are coming for your guns. Whenever a tragic act of violence makes national headlines, the calls to give up more of our freedoms and liberties in exchange for the promise of increased security become deafening. But if we take another step toward becoming an authoritarian society every time something horrible happens, eventually we won't have any of these basic liberties and freedoms that previous generations of Americans fought so hard to secure for us. Unfortunately, voices like mine are becoming increasingly rare, and the American people seem to want a society that will shelter them from anything that could possibly go wrong. Of course, there has never been such a society in all of human history, and we won't be able to create one either. No governmental system can eliminate the problem of evil, and bad things sometimes happen to good people. And without a doubt, the mass shootings that we witnessed over the weekend were absolutely horrific. In less than 24 hours, 29 American lives were lost between these two mass shootings, and this has greatly shaken the entire nation. This is a short piece out of the USA Today. On Sunday, Americans woke up to news of a shooting rampage in an entertainment district of Dayton, Ohio, where a man wearing a body armor shot and killed 9 people, including his own sister. Hours earlier, a 21-year-old with a rifle entered into a Walmart in El Paso and killed 20 people. In a country that has become nearly numb to men with guns opening fire in schools, at concerts, and in churches, the back-to-back burst of gun violence in less than 24 hours were enough to leave the public stunned and shaken. Now, sadly, these are not isolated incidents. As our society has become less moral, we have seen an escalation of violence all over the country. Now, again, according to USA Today, so far in 2019, there have been more mass shootings than days in the year. A shooting spree early Sunday at the entertainment district in Dayton, Ohio, which left at least 9 dead and more than 24 injured, notched an even darker statistic. It occurred on the 216th day of the year, meaning there have been more mass shootings than days so far this year. As I have been warning you guys for years, the thin veneer of civilization that we all take for granted is steadily disappearing. At one time, you could walk down the streets in most communities in America without worrying that someone would suddenly gun you down, but there is no longer a safe assumption. And in some areas, things are getting really, really, really bad. Just check out what happened in Chicago over this last weekend. In Chicago, 7 killed and 46 wounded in a Chicago weekend shootings. Evening in shootings within the city limits. Yes, within the city limits, including 22 people shot Sunday in less than 4 hours, as the Chicago Sun-Times has reported. And in particular, the mass shootings that took place near a children's playground was particularly tragic. As Epoch Times' Jack Phillips reports, at least 7 people were shot and wounded on August 4th as they gathered near a children's playground in Chicago's West Side. The people gathered at 1:20 a.m. as they stood in the park in the 29 West Roosevelt Road when a person opened fire from a black Chevy Camaro, said Chicago police. So why didn't this mass shooting get the same kind of coverage that the other mass shootings have received? Could it be because it didn't nearly fit the agenda that the mainstream media is trying to promote? The city of Baltimore is another major American city where violence is completely and utterly out of control. In fact, there's only one nation on the entire planet that has a higher homicide rate than Baltimore. Only one country in the world has a higher per capita homicide rate than the city of Baltimore, according to the World Atlas. The murder capital of the globe is Honduras, where there are 90.4 homicides per 100,000 people. Yes, folks, almost 90.5 people die per 100,000. Baltimore, with 56 homicides per 100,000 people, edges out the number 2 spot ahead of Venezuela, where there are 53.7 homicides per 100,000 people. As the violence across our country continues to escalate, the calls to resist our Second Amendment rights are going to become overwhelming. But taking away our Second Amendment right is not going to solve this problem. Instead, it will just take the guns out of the hands of law-abiding citizens. The truth is that the El Paso shooter picked a gun-free zone for a reason. When they know that their targets will be sitting ducks, that just makes things easier for the mass shooters. And the bad guys will always find ways to get guns. Just look at the city of Chicago. They have some of the harshest gun laws in the entire nation, but they also lead the country in gun deaths. Unfortunately, logic doesn't tend to work with those that love authoritarianism. Whenever something happens, they want the government to do something, and that something almost always involves eroding our most basic rights. I wish that wasn't true, but this is where our country is heading. Folks, Americans have been trained to believe that the government should take care of them from the cradle to the grave and should do all that it can to shield them from everything bad that can possibly happen in their life. Sadly, every time such a totalitarian utopia has been attempted throughout the human history of this world, it has always ended very, very badly for the citizens. And that will be the case here as well. It would be the case. It would not end well here, folks. That's why we don't give up our freedoms and liberties and our things. We don't give anything away to idiots. They never give it back. It's really hard. QPost 3568, we get a 24-hour warning. Now, was that, some people are taking it that that was 24-hour prior. No, we had a 24-hour period where we had 2 mass shootings take place, folks. That's what I take that to be. That was a false flag alert. Possibility of a deep state attack was extreme, and it was pretty crazy. The more people that see this information, the better. And we need to wake up more people while there is still time. I'm Michael. This is a Patriot Hour. God bless, Godspeed to each and every one of you worldwide. Where we go one, we go all.